Hey everyone, thanks for joining us and Play Games. My name is Lance, and today I'm going to teach you how to play Sins. This is a new game by Competitve Games. It is a two-player game per box that you have, so you can add additional boxes to add higher player counts to the game. And each game roughly runs about 15 to 30 minutes, depending upon where you've set it at and how many players are playing. So in this video, I'm going to teach you how to play Sins, starting with the components and setup, player turns, and endgame conditions. As always, if you find these videos helpful, if you like what I do, please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to my channel, as it really does make a big difference, helps me to continue to grow and produce these videos. And if you want to stay updated on all my videos, also consider ringing that bell so you get notifications anytime I release new content. So let's head to the table, and I'll teach you guys how to play. The first set of cards are the Chronos Cards, and each of these is going to have different imaging on it, but they all work exactly the same, and each will have an omnis power at the bottom that'll be used to purchase Sin cards from the realm. And each player is going to start with 10 of these at the beginning of the game. Each player is going to receive a dominance card, which is going to track their dominance over the other player, and the first player to 2 points is going to be the winner. You can choose to play longer or shorter games as well. The last set of cards are the Sin cards, which players are going to be purchasing throughout the game. Each of these cards will have a weakness in the middle of the card, and this will be used in a couple of different things that I'm going to cover a little bit later in the video. Underneath that, it's going to be the card's taglines. On the left side, it's going to list the sin that card's associated with, which there are 7 sins: envy, gluttony, greed, lust, pride, sloth, and wrath. On the other side, on the right-hand side, is going to be the type of card it is. So you'll have some undead cards, spirit cards, and beast cards. And some of the abilities of the card will reference this on some of the cards. Finally, at the bottom of the card is the card's power, which again will be used for a couple of different things, and I'll go into more detail about that later. Now you'll notice that both the weaknesses and powers have colors, and there are 5 different colors in the game. Pink will be Canva, blue is going to be Viscous, orange is Ignis, green is Terra, and white is Omnis, and white will be wild and can be used as any color. Finally, at the bottom of the card is the reference number of that card, and will be used to determine the first player at the beginning of the game, and after the slash will be the number of cards of that type that are included in the deck. For setup, first decide the number of players that are playing, and you'll need a deck of cards for every 2 players. So I'm just going to set it for a 2-player game, so I'm just going to use 1 deck of cards. From there, you can deal each player a dominance card that they'll place in front of them with the 0 side up. Each player is also going to receive 10 Cosmos cards, and these don't need to be shuffled as they're all the same, so you can just place them in a pile. And then each player will draw 5 of those to be their starting hands. Next, each player will also get a quick reference guide and a turn order card. Next, you'll go ahead and shuffle up the main deck of Sins cards and place that out in the center of the table. And then each player is going to take the top card of the deck and consult the number in the bottom corner. And the player that has the highest number will be the winning player and will be the first player to take their turn. If there's a tie, those cards will be removed and destroyed from the game, and another set will be dealt out. So our player here has an 11, and our player up here has a 2. So our player down here will be the starting player, and then again these cards will be destroyed. Finally, you'll reveal the top 5 cards of the deck to the middle of the playing area, and this is going to be the realm where the players will be able to purchase these cards and add them to their deck. From here, you're ready to begin the game with the first player. Sins is played over an undefined number of turns, starting with the first player and proceeding clockwise with each player getting to take a turn, and during each player's turn it's broken down into 4 phases: the status phase, buy phase, attack phase, and refresh phase. And this is going to continue until one of the players meets the endgame condition, which is the first player to receive 2 dominance will be the winning player of the game. Now alternatively, you can play a quicker game setting it to 1 dominance, or a longer game going all the way to 3 dominance. The first phase of a player's turn is the status phase, and this is going to be skipped for the first couple rounds as you're going to be trying to acquire new Sins cards. But in later rounds, as the players get cards in the other player's despair pile, they can choose to resolve that pile during this step. For example, let's go ahead and say that my player here had been able to get some cards in the other player's despair pile, and so during this phase he can choose to resolve that pile. When he does, those cards are going to be removed and revealed. And then you're going to count up all the weaknesses on the cards. So both of the Cosmos cards have no weakness, so those count as 0, but we do have a Pride card with 2 and a Sloth card with 4, so our total there is 6, and if we get 5 or more, then we have scored 1 dominance on our player, and we'll move our dominance up 1 on the track. If this is the second dominance, then we have won the game. In either situation, if, say, for example, we didn't have enough, then those cards are going to be wasted and destroyed and removed from the game. And then our player will have to try to build up again and go after the other player again. The second phase in a player's turn is the buy phase. At the beginning of this phase, you're going to refill the realm, adding new Sins cards back into the realm so that there are 5 cards. Then the player can play cards from his hand to activate the ability on the card immediately when played, and then he can also spend the power on the bottom of the card to purchase new Sins cards from the realm. Each one of the Sins cards is going to have 1 or more weaknesses, and that is the number of power you must spend in order to purchase that card. So, for example, with the Lust card, it has 2 Terra weakness, so you'd have to spend 2 Terra or 2 Omnis power or any combination of. Now, as you get Sins cards, you'll notice that the Sins cards have particular powers versus the Cosmos cards that will have the Omnis power that can be used as anything. So moving into my player's example, right now all he has is 5 Cosmos cards, so he is going to spend 4 of those to purchase one of these greed cards, adding it straight to his discard pile, and he only has 1 Cosmos card left, so there's no point in doing anything else with it right now as there are no more Sins cards out there that can be purchased for just 1. So he's going to add these cards to his discard pile, keeping the 1 card in his hand. The third phase in a player's turn is the attack phase, and this is probably going to be skipped the first couple rounds of the game, or is also going to be skipped anytime you spent all your cards during the buy phase, as you won't have any cards left in your hand to be able to play during the attack phase. From there, in this example, I did add some cards to my player's hand, draw pile, and my opponent's hand to show you a better example of how this works, as normally in the beginning of the game you would not have any cards that you could really play during the attack phase that are going to help you. So to start an attack phase, you're going to play a card and select an opponent. If it's a 2-player game, you're simply going to attack your opponent you're sitting across from. In a larger player game, you're going to choose 1 opponent to attack, and that is the only player you can attack during this attack phase. From there, any card you play, you can activate the ability on the card if it is able to be activated. So for example, with this card here, the Lust, I can look at the top card of any pile and return it to the top or bottom. So as I am attacking my opponent, I want to make sure that I have a good card on the top of my deck. So I'm going to go ahead and look and see what I have. And it is a Gluttony card, so I definitely want to leave this on the top of my card. But if that was a Cosmos card, I probably would have dropped it to the bottom, as the Cosmos cards aren't going to have any weakness and will not help me in helping to get dominance from my player. So from there, once I play a card, then my opponent can respond by either playing a defensive card or they can pass. If the player chooses to pass, then they have passed for the rest of the round and they cannot do anything else. So the defensive player is going to look and see, and he does have a Wrath card that he is going to play that has 1 Omnis weakness, so it can block any 1 power. From there, it's going to go back to my player to again choose another card if he wants to play, and I am going to play this Greed card here that has a Viscous power, and it says that I get to gain any Spirit card. So I'm going to look and see. I have a Spirit up here, I have another Spirit there, I have lots of Spirit cards. So I'm going to go ahead and gain this one here, adding it to my discard pile. Then I am again hitting my opponent, and currently all he has left are the Cosmos cards, so it won't do him any good to play those, so he is going to pass at this point, and it would go back to me, and I am also going to pass, and once the attacker passes, then the attack phase is over. From there, then you're going to compare the power that you're playing against your opponent's defensive weaknesses. So currently the player over here only played 1 Omnis weakness, so it's only going to be able to block 1 of the powers. But let's go ahead and say, for example, that my player, instead of playing this Greed card here, ended up playing a second Lust card. So I would have 2 Canva power going at my opponent. And let's say that my opponent instead had played this Gluttony card here that has 3 Canva weakness. So that can block up to 3 of my power that is Canva. So in this situation, my opponent would have had a much better defensive and would have blocked all of my attacking power. But since I broke up my attacking power with multiple different powers, then I am going to be able to get one of those through. To get it through, then I'm going to take the top card of my draw pile and add it onto my opponent's despair pile. From there, any cards that I played are going to be added to my discard pile, and same with my opponent's. And the one important thing that I want to point out with this is that these cards that are in your hand will not be refreshed until your refresh phase. So by playing, the opponent playing cards is also depleting cards that he can play during his attack phase. And somewhat likewise with the attacker, the more power or attack cards that I play and add despair to my opponent, the less number of cards that I'm going to be able to draw during the refresh phase, as you guys are going to see. And the final phase in the player's turn is the refresh phase. During this phase, first off, the player can choose to either keep any cards that he currently has in his hand or discard those cards to his discard pile. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. Then the player is going to refill his hand, subtracting any cards that he currently has in his hand and any cards that he added to his opponent's despair pile this turn. So I have only added one card to the player's despair pile, and I don't have any cards in my hand, so I'm going to redraw back up to 4 cards instead of 5, as I'm subtracting the 1 from my player's despair pile. Once this is done, then it'll move to the next player in clockwise order, or your opponent if you're only playing a 2-player game, for that player to start his turn. Now I'm going to put everything together and show you a couple more rounds in action. So I went ahead and advanced the game a little bit more to show you some more details of it. So moving back into my player's turn here, I'm going to start with my status phase. So I'm going to resolve my opponent's despair pile, revealing it to see if I get any dominance. I have a gluttony card with 3 weakness, so good start. And then a cosmos, and a lust card. So I have a total of 5 or more, so I do gain 1 dominance over my opponent. So I'm halfway there, 1 more point, and I win the game. These will be destroyed and removed from the game. And then I'll move into the buy phase. So I'm going to go ahead and refill the realm. And do I want to buy anything? Sure. So I'm going to go ahead and start off by playing this card for its viscous power, and I'm not going to trigger its ability. And then I will play an envy card, and this one I am going to activate, and it says that I can swipe a random card from another player's hand with a random card from my hand. So I only have 2 Cosmos cards left, so this is going to hopefully work out in my favor. So I'll go ahead and fan out my opponent's pile and choose one of these to take randomly. So I'm going to go ahead and take the top one here. Ooh, and I got a good card. All right, so then he takes one. Obviously, he's going to get stuck with a lot worse card. And I'm not going to play any additional cards this turn, so I am going to use the power here to buy the lust card, adding it to my discard pile, and then these will be returned. Then moving into the attack phase, I'm going to go ahead and try it, and I'll play that sloth card, and then I'm going to discard the next card played. So my opponent is going to pass at that point, because even if he plays a card, it's going to be discarded. And I only have a Cosmos card left, so there's no point in playing that. So at this point, then 1 got through, so I'll add 1 card to my opponent's pile. This will be added to my discard, and then I will draw back up from my hands, shuffling my discard. Now I am going to keep the 1 card in my hands, and I added 1 card this turn, so I'm only going to get to draw 3 cards total from my draw pile. At this point, then it'll move over to my opponent's turn, so he is also going to resolve the despair. He has a gluttony card for 3 and 2 Cosmos cards, so he did not get it. So these will be destroyed as well. And then we'll move into his buy phase. He is going to reveal a new card from the realm, and then he'll play cards. So with his cards, does he want to do any buy phase? He is going to skip the buy phase and move right into the combat phase, or the attack phase. So he is going to play this one here, and this lets him look at the top 3 cards of his draw pile and rearrange them in any order that he wants. So, okay, so we're going to go ahead and do that. And then my player gets to respond. If I want to play a card, I am going to pass, and I'm not going to play a card. So then he can choose to play another card. He will play the greed card, and he gains a spirit for that. So he's going to choose greed and add it to his discard. And then again, I passed, so I cannot respond regardless. And so he is going to pass at this point, doing 2 damage to me. So he will add 2 cards to my despair. And then he will discard these and redraw. And he is going to discard the 2 cards he had in his hand to be able to draw new cards. So at this point, he will subtract these 2 from the cards he can draw. So he's only going to get to draw 3 cards this turn. And then it would come back over to my player here. And this is going to continue going back and forth until one of the players meets the dominance requirement. So as soon as I get 2 or my opponent gets 2 on me, the game is over unless you've chosen to play a longer game. Well, I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions or comments, leave those in the comment section below and I'll do my best to answer them. If you found this video helpful, if you like what I do, please consider that like button, subscribe to my channel, as it really does make a big difference. It helps me to continue to grow and produce these videos. And as always, thank you so much for taking the time to watch my videos and leave me feedback on them. I do really appreciate it, and I take into account everything you guys say to make the best possible videos. Until next time, I'll see you guys later.